slave to our freedom.
The young brother was downright eloquent with his misinformed soliloquy. He said using nigger affectionately among ourselves takes the negativity out of the word, but that no other race of people can use it ever but us. And you thought that kind of reasoning existed only in the Twilight Zone. Then again, the Twilight Zone was a TV show, and the plight of black America is tragic reality. Somebody said the revolution would not be televised. They didn't say anything about our devolution, which is well documented. You see it every day, our disrespect for one another. You can hear it in our sad excuse for artistry. We continue to squander our brilliant cultural legacy as musicians, poets, educators, and inventors. We call our women bitches and hoes. In a vivid exhibition of self-repulsion, we refer to ourselves as niggas. In our quest for acceptance and our relentless worship of bling, we have shared our sense of dignity and self-worth. It didn't used to be this way. Ironically, back when we fought for the opportunities we now abuse, that is when we stood tallest. Out of our torturous struggle for equality morphed a mighty pride and honor.
Slave to our freedom.
But now our pride is built on hollow motives and aimless ambitions. Today, to identify our oppressor, the modern black American need look no further than his own mirror. All of us aren't lost. Many of us know damn well that the emperor is butt naked. Every day we fight the good fight. But high praise for low thinking has taken its toll on generations. When so many are lost, there is enough blame to go around. When Martin Luther King Jr. prophesied the black man one day reaching the so-called promised land, he said,
I might not get there with you.
Lord knows, he didn't think we'd end up here.
Islam, our divine and national movement, stand for the Pacific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And the Prophet Noble Jew Ali am applying to all loyal, faithful Mars members and the American citizens to help him in his great uplifting acts of uplifting fallen humanity among the Asiatic race and nation. For he has suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. It is the great God Allah alone that guides the destiny of this divine and national movement. I know that all true American citizens are identified by national and national decent name, in order to answer and apply to the free national constitution of the free national republic of the United States of America. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali is going to help this national government, for without a free national name with the defense flag of your forefathers, there is not a national divine title of a government in which you live. This is from your true and divine Prophet Noble Drew Ali to all Americans and foreign sympathizers. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali is the founder. At this time, I'd like to recite the Moorish American prayer, the source from which we draw our strength. Islam. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day. Through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. First off, I'd like to rise, circle in the camel's hump, which symbolize endurance, to give praise to Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the world, almighty, eternal, and incomprehensible. I'd like to give honor to Allah's holy and illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I'd like to give honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali because it was he who reached down into the watery grave of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harm and brought you and me back up right on our feet again. I'd like to give honor to the forerunner to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Moses Garvey. I'd like to give honor to Marcus Garvey because this brother had to have pure thoughts in order to pave the way for love divine. I'd like to give honor to our two flags, the flag of our origin and the flag of our birth. And honor to our charter with its 10 great wonders and mysteries that gives us the right to function in these United States and throughout the world without molestation or ridicule of any kind. I'd like to give honor to all literature pertaining to Islam in the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'd like to give honor to Temple 2 for their wills and ways, and honor to all of those that have and will aid and assist us in this, our divine and gigantic mission, the uplifting of fallen humanity. At this time, I'd like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, the book of the seven seals. You know, they talk about Jesus in the Bible when he was 12 years old. And you hear no more about him again until he's 30. These are the 18 years that's missing in your Holy Bible. So this evening, I would like to read from the Moorish Holy Quran, page 57. The title of this chapter is The Beginning of Christianity. And I'm going to read from verse 2. I'm going to read from verse 2 because it's imperative that I do. And it reads on this wise. Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa. That's where we just had a reading of the book of the seven seals. Now what I want to do in 45, before I close this out, I'm going to go back to page 57 again, a different chapter, chapter 45, and I'll read from verse 3. And verse 3 reads on this wise. The Egyptians, who were the Hamathites, and a direct descendant of Mizraim, the Arabians, the seed of Hagar, Japanese, and Chinese. We're always honored, the Moorish voice, to be able to come before our Portland listening audience and give you something to think about. We call it the Last Supper, because when Jesus was with his disciples at the Last Supper, what did he feed them? He fed them food for thought. So I want to start out by, I quoted something today. I quoted from the prophet literature. And as I quoted, it said, our divine and national movement stand for the Pacific grand principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. The chairman and I today was in a meeting with a lot of brothers who call themselves Moorish Americans. And in our meeting this morning, they was telling us about they're part of the national side of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I quoted what I just quoted them, that our divine and national movement. Noble Drew Ali didn't bring us a national movement. He brought us a national and divine, because he had to bring us two things that was missing. When every prophet ever came to a people, that prophet had a nationality. So whenever a prophet came to a people, they only had to bring one thing, and that was the religion, telling them how to get back in unity with God. But when Noble Drew Ali came, he had to do something that no other prophet had to do. He had to bring us two things. He had to bring us a nationality, and he had to bring us a divine creed. Now, a lot of us don't want to look at this. You don't want to look at it, but you never heard nobody in the world or here in America talk to you about nationality other than in the Moorish Zion Temple of America. Because if Allah sends somebody with the methodology that's conducive to our growth and our development, he had to bring two things. He had to hook you back up with the family of nations. And then he had to give you a religion of your forefathers. Because we're what our forefathers were, without doubt or contradiction. Now, today is March something. Friday at our holy day was March the 2nd. And being that it was March the 2nd, I used something to talk about something. And on social media, this last week, you had a few people from Morocco was on the air saying how Morocco was the first nation on earth that became friends with the United States. And we want to look at this. We want to look at this because, you know, when you begin to study the book about March the 2nd, it say Morocco got its independence March 2nd, 1956, from under the French rule. Now, how can Morocco just get its independence when we the oldest nation on earth? Or you saying they just got their independence from being under the French rule? Because when you begin to talk about the Berlin Conference, Morocco is a part of that. Egypt is a part of that. Israel is a part of that. They are part of the Berlin Conference. All those people that's there in those locations that I call is part of the Berlin Conference, and they was taken there. Just like we having trouble now about the Europeans in South Africa, and what are they doing? They buying up all the land, and the new minister that came in to manifest, he said that he was going to stop all of that. So in the Moorish Zion Temple of America, it's not just a national side. If you hear anybody say it's a national side, they done took on something of their own. Because Drew Ali said our divine and national movement stand for the Pacific Grand Principle. But he told us that he has suffered much and severely in the past through misunderstanding of what the movement was dedicated to. So Drew Ali brought us two things, as we always say. 3/5 of a man, Drew Ali had to bring us those other 2/5 to make us whole. And those other 2/5 was your nationality and your divine creed, and now you're whole again. Now, we have something else coming up on March the 6th. And when you look at March the 6th, this is when the Dred Scott decision of March the 6th, 1857 came into manifest. And Chief Justice Roger B. Tynan at that time, he said that the words all men are created equal never meant to apply to the Negro, colored, and black. And that's understandable, because I didn't understand it at first until I seen Drew Ali. But if you call yourself Negro, if you call yourself colored, if you call yourself black, if you call yourself Afro-American, you have no place on earth of which you can trace yourself back to. Why is that? Did not we have a national name when first brought to these shores in the early part of the 17th century? If so, what was it? It was Moorish. Because we went into Spain as Moors and we came out as Negro, colored, and black. And if you call yourself Negro, which is a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water, if you call yourself colored, and color is anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. If you call yourself black, and black according to science means death, black in science means justice, you are a slave. I don't care how much science you say that you know. If you call yourself black, Negro, or colored, you a slave, because these are slaves' names. These names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But Noble Drew Ali came to redeem us from that which was lost. And how did he do? He brought us something that we needed. He brought us a nationality and divine creed. Because when the books say honor thy father and thy mother, it's talking about your father and it's talking about your mother. It's talking about your nationality and it's talking about your father, who is the great God, Allah. Now, Noble Drew Ali told the Moors, he said, I go to all schools of learning. He said, not to learn, because I'm divinely prepared. He said, I go to all these schools so man will have no reason to marvel in his own vanity. Now, we got tricked through the language. And what I want to talk about briefly before we call the chairman, I heard brother teach this weekend, and he was saying that the last prophet that the European nations had was Jesus. And when Jesus passed, there'll be no more. But I read when it said Jesus is of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites. And when you read in the scripture, it said Ruth was a Moabite. And it said the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. So when you find a brother, I don't care if he got 1 million followers, and he tell you that Jesus was a European, and knowing that you Ali told us on our nationality card about birthright, and who in the history of mankind lost the birthright other than you and me? So if you call those who call themselves Jew, if you call them Jew when you know that they stole our birthright, see, that was Esau and Jacob. And when you begin to talk about Esau and Jacob, one stole the other birthright, and you and I lost our birthright. Now you got those people calling themselves Jew. I told you about Samuel Davis Jr. They was laughing at him because he said that he was a Jew. And then you had a lot of Europeans who said they was Jew too. So all of them took the DNA. Come to find out that Stevie Wonder was the only one who was of that blood. So I'll be back to tell you a few more things. But we have someone to come before you right now to tell you some things that you need to hear, the lawman of the temple. I got you on the spiritual thing, but I got a lawman to come by here and tell you some things. So without further ado, we want to call the chairman of Temple Number 2, Portland, Oregon, my brother and my friend, Brother A. Boston Hill.
Blessed Sheik. Praise Allah. Well, I was just sitting here listening to the Sheik speak, and I was off into this mindset. Praise Allah for the brother. First of all, I want to say it's a blessing from Allah to be back before our Portland listening audience tonight, and more all over the country, here, there, and everywhere. I want to greet everyone in the universal salutations of Islam. Islam means peace. Islam is a religion of peace. And it means peace with yourself, peace with your fellow man, but most of all, peace with your Creator, the Father God, Allah. I was sitting here listening to what the Sheik was talking about, and you know, the only thing we ask is that you use common sense. You know, Allah has blessed each and every one of us with the faculties of thinking, understanding, reasoning, and willing. And matter of fact, I participated in a class today with some brothers and sisters, and the lesson was the Holy Instructions of Unity, which is chapter 26 of our Moorish Holy Quran. And but I want to reiterate praises and honors that the Sheik gave when he opened up the show. And I want to say that I'm especially blessed to be able to be a part of this divine and national movement. And I was sharing some of my experiences with some brothers down in Florida this past weekend. And, you know, we've been receiving a lot of phone calls and emails and different vias of electronic transmissions from different people all over the country who are hungry and want to really, really learn about Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America. Now, as I said before, you know, we are not in the recruiting business. We not no Black Power movement. We not gang affiliated or anything like that. This Moorish Science Temple of America that was founded by Prophet Noble Drew Ali in 1913 AD is a lawfully and chartered organization. And, you know, so we're going to talk a little bit about, I want to talk a little bit about what the Sheik was speaking about when he opened up the show. I want to camelback with him on this nationality issue, because that is the only supreme issue at this point in time for the redemption and salvation of our people. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, gave us this authority to be able to consecrate missionaries, you know, all over the world. And there's a question in the Quran questionnaire that says, what are angels used for? And the answer to that is to carry messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations. And I was sharing with this class this morning how this unity that takes place. Well, first of all, you know, it's been taught by the Sheikh many times that, you know, we have to unify with our Creator. And a lot of people think that they are connected to their Creator, but they're not, because they still live in the ways of the world. And that's one thing I like about being in the Moorish Science Temple of America, because now I'm being able to grasp the understanding that Jesus brought forth, and Confucius and Buddha and Muhammad and then finally Prophet Noble Drew Ali. And I was sharing with these individuals, I said, you know, the book of Deuteronomy says that any time a nation is in need of a prophet, Allah will send one. And, you know, and in our Moorish Holy Quran, it teaches that every nation of people have suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. You know, so every nation of people has suffered slavery at one time or another, and you know, and a prophet had to be sent because of the condition and mindset of the people of that era, you know. So I was also sharing with the brothers and sisters that all these different nations of people suffered slavery at one time or another, and Allah sent them a prophet. Why wouldn't he send us one? Look at the state of mind and the condition that we were in when before the Prophet Noble Drew Ali was divinely prepared by the great God Allah to manifest on this scene, teaching nationality and divine creed. And so I give praises to Allah, first of all, because in the depths of his mind, he revolveth all knowledge. The secrets of futurity are open before him, you know, and the thoughts of our heart are open to him. So, you know, everyone that is accountable, you know, it's said that in the judgment, every part of your body is going to bear witness against you. So, you know, we are just coming to warn you of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth if you don't change and amend your evil ways. So I give praise to Allah, and with respect to his prescience, I know that there is nothing contingent. With respect to his providence, I know that there is nothing accidental. You know, wonderful Allah is in all his ways. His counsels are inscrutable. The manner of his knowledge transcendeth thy conception. You know, and the fitted mind, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaches us in chapter 1 of the creation and fall of man that the fitted mind cannot comprehend things infinite. You know, and this is what I was trying to share with the brothers over the weekend about how to get in touch with the spirit, you know. And this, to me, right here, could be from my own personal experience of being in the Moorish Science Temple of America has you know, I'm getting off into the spirit of the word, you know. So, you know, I praise Allah each and every day for sending Prophet Noble Drew Ali to the Asiatics of North America. You know, and the Sheikh was talking about nationality and divine creed earlier. You know, in our Act 6 of the divine constitution and bylaws says that all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. Now, what is our free national name? A lot of people don't even know. A lot of people don't even know what our free national name is. Our free national name is American. You know, that's why we have these two flags up here, you know, because every nation of people And it's always said again and again and again, this is the great melting pot. You have a multitude of different nationalities within this big melting pot, you know. So nationality and divine creed, because see, having this free national name and then also having a national descent name. See, our descent is Moors, and our free national name is American. You know, the prophet asked a question in the Quran questionnaire. There's a question that said, what is our religion? And the answer to that is Islamism. And what is the ism? What is the Islamism? The Islamism is the study and practice of the doctrine of Islam. You know, we are not terrorists. We are not racist. You know, we are a people that are proud of who we are, you know, and being linked back then to the family of nations through the marvelous works of Prophet Noble Drew Ali. So my question tonight to the Moors and everybody out there who is concerned about nationality, I just want to say that if you have a free national name, you must have a free national government, which has a free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. And I'm going to stop there for a minute, because when we was talking about that national name, see, now I'm asking the question, because I'm letting it be known that if we have a free national name, then we also have a free national government, you know, which has a free national constitution. Our free national constitution is our divine constitution. See, our free national government is this theocratic government of which is a government within a government and a nation within a nation, because we are already linked back in with the families of nations. So that puts us in our place. But I want to issue a serious warning to all those that are out there practicing these evil deeds and sinful ways. I want to issue a warning to you that if you don't amend your ways, then the great God Allah wrath is going to be the worst thing that you could possibly ever experience, because you can't tear this Moorish Science Temple of America up. It will tear you up. And this is the words of the prophet. So with this, going back to this free national name, with this free national government and the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings, because in the literature, the prophet Noble Drew Ali said that the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment, which I'm going to get to here in a little bit, the application of it doesn't even apply when you have these elements in place. And what this does is the end result of having a free national name and a free national government with free national constitution and being a free national being is that you receive your divine rights under the great God Allah. I want to say that once again. Once you have these elements in place, you know, you receive your divine rights under Allah. And then when we talk about the nationality card, because we mentioned this also to some brothers and sisters that have been coming by to visit, is that, you know, on your nationality cards it say birthrights, you know, and who in the history of man has lost their birthrights, as the Sheikh said earlier? Nobody but us. And going into the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment, and Prophet Noble Drew Ali teaches in the literature, he said the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment is not needed for the salvation of our people and citizens. And why did he say that? Because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali had brought everything to us when he founded the first Moorish Science Temple of America at that time. You know, in Newark, New Jersey, the first temple was called the Canaanite Temple, the Canaanite Holy Temple of Science. And that was the first temple that the prophet established. So there's just so much information. But if you don't receive the right information, then you receive an incorrect information. And this is what The only thing that we trying to teach, and that's why we come out of the literature of the prophet. You know, we not glorifying man. You know, we're just following the prophet to a destiny which is not uncertain nor unknown. You know, and you know, there's been a big change in me since meeting the prophet. You know, and I'm proud to be able to say that I'm a Moorish American Muslim, you know. And when people ask me what my nationality is, I am very glad and blessed to be able to demonstrate that to them, you know. And I can see the respect that come from people knowing that we're not associating ourselves with the names and labels that delude to slavery, Negro, black, and colored. And why doesn't I'm going to go back to the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment and why it don't apply to us. Because the prophet says that the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. Now, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of it in regards to the salvation and redemption of our people. You know, and through that, in a part of that document of the Declaration of Independence, it talks about unalienable rights. And what are those unalienable rights that we have as being free national citizens? Is that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, there was I ran across, during my research, I ran across an original document of the Declaration of Independence, and there was something that I seen in there that caught my attention, and it said that no more can be made a slave while headdressed with a fez and in proper Moorish garb. And then, you know, in 1774, George Washington had made a statement at the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, PA, at that time when they had what was called the Odd Fellows Convention, but it was guised as the Odd Fellows Convention, but it was supposed to be the first Continental Congress. And he had made a statement and swore and made a sworn death oath with other members of the Continental Congress in regards to removing the fezzes and the from our heads and the sandals from our feet, and swearing this death oath that we are not to know about our nationality. But see, that took place because that was when the first generation of Moors were stripped of the nationality and divine creed. So what they did in the process was sold all the older generation off, all that first generation off. So the generation that came behind it had no knowledge of nationality, of their God and their religion and divine rights as citizens. They were referred to as Negro, black, and colored, because that's when we were stripped of it in 1774, but actually not until 1779 did it become official on record that we were Negro, black, and colored. So, there's a lot of information in there. So we get to ask a question: who made the slaves? And the European slaveholders is the one that made the slaves. You know, and I was talking to this brother down in a Florida institution. I spoke with this brother yesterday, and I want to extend honors to him for the question that he asked me over the phone, dealing with the subject matter on which I'm speaking of. And I was telling him, we were talking about the slave names, you know, and he asked me a question. He said, well, because of where I'm at, you know, he's new to the information of the Moorish Science Temple of America, but he's very, very hungry to learn about nationality and divine creed. And I was telling him, I said, you know, he was asking me about the slave names. And I said, well, what do you think the slave names are? And he was thinking that he was under the assumption that the birth name that he was given was his slave name. And I said, no, your birth name is not a slave name. Your slave name is Negro, black, and colored. And as long as you cling to those names and labels, you're still a slave, as the Sheikh said earlier. So you know, just kind of reiterating some things. And this some of the things that I've been sharing with some young people, some young brothers, and everything like that. So, you know, I'm really adamant about Noble Drew Ali. I'm really adamant about taking my place in the affairs of men. And this is what we're trying to do in the Moorish Science Temple of America, is to make our people better citizens. You know, but I want to take a reading from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America on a chapter real quick, and then we get the Sheikh back on and let him close us out for this evening. And the chapter that I want to take a reading from out of the Moorish Holy Quran is chapter 34, and it's entitled Holy Instructions from the Prophet, Sincerity. And I'm going to read this chapter in its entirety, and then I'm going to say peace. And these are the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet. And it says, verse 1, it starts out, it says, O thou who art enamored with the beauty of truth, and hast fixed thy heart on the simplicity of her charms, hold fast thy fidelity unto her, and forsake her not. The constancy of thy virtue shall crown thee with honor. The tongue of the sincere is rooted in heart. Hypocrisy and deceit have no place in his words. He blusheth at falsehood and is founded, but in speaking the truth he hath a steady eye. He supporteth as a man the dignity of his character. To the arts of hypocrisy he scorneth to stoop. He is consistent with himself, he is never embarrassed. He hath courage enough for truth, but to lie he is afraid. He is far above the meanness of dissimulation. The words of his mouth or the thoughts of his heart. Yet with prudence and caution he openeth his lips. He studieth what is right and speaketh with discretion. He adviseth with friendship. He reproveth with freedom. And whatsoever he promiseth shall surely be performed. But the heart of the hypocrite is hid in his breast. He maketh his words in the semblance of truth, while the business of his life is only to deceive. He laugheth in sorrow, he weepeth in joy, and the words of his mouth have no interpretation. He worketh in the dark as a mole, and fancies he is safe. But he blundereth into light, and is betrayed and exposed with dirt on his head. He passeth his days in perpetual constraint. His tongue and his heart are forever at variance. He laboreth for the character of a righteous man, but huggeth himself in the thoughts of his cunning. And this is what I want to say to those out there that's taking the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Prophet's teachings and using it for your own selfish gain. This final message is for you. O fool, fool, the pains which thou takest to hide what thou art are more than would make thee what thou wouldest seem. And the children of wisdom shall mock at thy cunning, when in the midst of thy security thy disguise is stripped off, and the finger of derision shall point thee to scorn. I just read the laws of the holy and divine prophet Noble Drew Ali, and I want to say, may Allah continue to bless you all, and I leave you in peace. I'll call the Sheikh back on now. Praise Allah.
Islam, praise Allah. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you,
I
Sheikh.
really enjoyed hearing the
Praise
chairman
Allah.
talk about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. You know, it's a brother named Lynch-Bey, big old Dog Creek brother out of California. And I've been checking him out lately. You know, a lot of things that he say that I'm in agreement with. But it was something that this brother said, and it put me on point. You know, the reason why it put me on point is because in my early days in the Moorish Science Temple, I was in the preparation center. And all of those brothers that I was in conflict with, you know, in the early 70s, it just dawned on me that these brothers were 3 or 4 or 5 years older than me. And even some of the ones that's in the Moorish Science Temple, even though I was in that position, but I was the leader. I was older than most of these brothers. And the only reason why I was able to deal with those brothers because what they didn't know, I was raised up in the church. and I was a master of the Bible. My mother taught me about that book, you know, in the church. And one of the things that I had trouble with in the Moorish Science Temple of America, when we understood about James Stewart. And James Stewart was King James. And we understood some of the things that he changed in the Bible. But one of the things we was talking about that he didn't change, it was in the book of Revelations. And when you look in the book of Revelations at chapter 1, verse 4, it talk about John, and John was talking to the 7 churches which was in Asia. It didn't say the 7 churches that was in Europe. It said the 7 churches that was in Asia. So let's get some understanding of that, because understanding is the rock on which man builds himself. So why did it say the 7 churches in Asia and not the 7 churches in Europe? Why? Because at that time, Europe was not even in existence. So there was a time when Europe was not in it. That's why they say, who are you? You're an Asiatic Muslim. It's not but 2 formulations. One is Asiatic and the other is European, and you sure not European. Now, everybody in the world, they call themselves white. When you look at them, they are known as European. And everybody else in the whole world is known as Asiatics. So now, you know, the continental drift, and a lot of other Kansas, Nebraska's Act, the Missouri Compromise, and it's a lot of different things that go with the Dred Scott decision that Drew Ali brought to us. So now you'll find some brothers and you'll find some sisters that's teaching this gospel. And when you look at what Drew Ali told us, and you still seeing Moorish Americans, they say Noah's 3 sons were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. You see it in the church. You see it in all other Islamic organizations that 3 sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And when you do that, you're separating some things. You are separating your genealogy, because this is what transpired. Now look at this again. We're talking about Saudi Arabia. We're talking about Israel. And we're talking about Morocco. Now, when you look at Saudi Arabia today, when you look at Israel today, and when you look at Morocco today, those people that inherited that land is not there today. Drew Ali told us this in 1913. This is why in Israel they have a 6-pointed star. They call it the Star of David. In Morocco, they got the 5-pointed star again, but when we first came on the scene, the 5-pointed star was not in Morocco. It was the Moors of D.C., really, that gave that flag back to Morocco, because Morocco did not get its independence until March 2nd, 1956, from under the French rule. So Drew Ali is telling us some things. So we keep talking about the Berlin Conference. And when we talk about the Berlin Conference, we look at the Berlin Conference of how the Europeans went into Africa and divided it up. But there's more to the Berlin Conference. The Berlin Conference has something to do when you go to Saudi Arabia today and see all them Europeans over there with an accent, and you accept them as being the original Arabian, when the book tells you that Jesus himself was of the true blood of the ancient Canaanites and Moabites and the inhabitants of Africa. And then it tells you right here that the Egyptians, who were the Hamathites. Now, when you go to Egypt today, I didn't want to take you there. When you go to Egypt today, you're still talking about the Berlin Conference, because the Egyptians are not in Egypt today. They done moved them. That's why they took the Spain. Look at them. And look at the book. I'm going to call the book. I don't like to talk about books a lot, because all those guys talking about they're on the national side, they're always referring to you to read certain books. Only book I need is Drew Ali books. That's why when we study here at Temple 2, we don't talk about what took place in 1930, 1931. See, because when I joined the Moorish Science Temple, let me tell you something. We had to go all across the world. Everybody was hiding. They were still hiding there. They wasn't coming up. The only grand body that wasn't hiding, I'm talking about they had some wisdom, because we ain't talking about somebody talking about 3 or 4 different prophets. I mean, everybody's intelligent. You know, that's why in Washington, D.C., you don't have no reincarnated temples there, because we weren't going to go for that at that time. However, I tell you what we did have in Washington, D.C. You see all these malls that's together now? That's in unity with different grand bodies. We had a thing in D.C. We started that right there in Washington, D.C. to bring about that Sister Jazz. I never forget that. You know, we used that place to talk about unity, and all the brothers and sisters around the country, you know, came there, and we did it. But let me tell you this. Everybody that you meet that went through all the ways of life, ain't nobody perfect. You gonna go through all the trials and tribulations. The same person you was yesterday, you're not that same person today if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to elevate. Every round gets higher and higher. And the more things that you overcome in your life, the greater and the stronger you become. And this is what Drew Ali taught us. He said every round gets higher and higher. Every time you overcome a foe, every time you let something go, that means that you get closer to God. Because in order to get close to God, you got to be on that plane of thought. You got to be on that level of understanding. And as climbing Jacob's ladder, when every round gets higher and higher, you getting close to God. See, because when you begin to talk about meeting God in the spirit of truth, then you're talking about elevating your thought pattern. You're talking about letting go of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything is harm, which are the attributes of hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything is harm. So this body in which we come to you, this ain't us. It don't think, nor do it reason. That's why when you hear a lot of people that take on certain concepts and try to be other than themselves, and they tell you that it's in the body, it ain't in the body. Man is not the body, nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. So whatever you going through in your life has nothing to do with the body, because it don't think or read, has something to do with your messed up in your thinking. Same thing with me. I go through the trials and tribulations, and when I go through things, it's something that I'm dealing with mental. See, because mental slavery, which I now have. Now we keep talking about the slave master. Everybody want to say the slave master, and when you talk about the slave master, who do you look at? The first person you look at is a European, and say after slave master. You know who the slave master is? As I begin to study myself, if I smoke cigarettes, that's my master. If I drink, that's my master. If I do fornication, that's my master. Anything that I do that's diametrically opposed to what God say, then that is my master. See? So we have to learn how to master our thoughts. See? Because thought is the cause of it all. And in order to get close to God, you know how the book say? The body remained perfect after it is fled. When you go to a funeral, the body laying up there, the body is still perfect, but it can't move because the spirit is gone. So right now, while we're on this plane of things made manifest, we can let our spirit, oh man, actuate and direct the flesh. That's why I know what you Ali said, get a good European education, and I can use you. So I ran to school to be a mathematician, and I ran to school to learn about medicine. But I had to go back into my lesson again, because I come to find out when you begin to talk about math, and when you begin to talk about medicine, that's not European. That come out of Egypt. So when Drew Ali say, get a good European education, hey, you know what? They said something about the prodigal son, and say the prodigal son left out of Asia, going into Europe. And when you do that, you left your father's house. And you took on all these concepts and these different ideologies. But when you come back to your father's house, when you come back home, when you come back to Asia, when you come back, then he's going to give you all that you have, because Allah is the Father. That's who is the Father. Drew Ali is not the Father. All the brothers is now hear him say, no, but Drew Ali is my Father. Even Jesus said, hey, I'm just your brother man. Come to show the way.
Yes, he did.
Don't praise me, praise Allah, the Holy One. And then Jesus said, what I've done, all men can do. And what I am, all men can do. So you know what that means? When they tell you about Jesus, they have you thinking that you could do or else. Jesus is telling us that whatever he done, whatever chambers he went through, whatever he overcame in life, we could do the same thing too, and greater. But they took Jesus, because Jesus They say they buried him in Vatican Square. And they took on our name, so they can't understand. They said we put all these things in front of Jesus. We put all these things in front of Mary and Elizabeth, and they yield not to these temptations. Something wrong with these people. Just like I heard years ago. They said once you take a smoke off a European cigarette here in America, then you're Americanized from that perspective. So we have a work to do here. You see that flag right there? I talked about it in Holy Day. That red flag with a white in it and with red in it that protected us in our infancy and our ignorance. If somebody come over here today, or any other government, they can come over here and take the morals and put us right back in slavery again. So that's why we fly that flag and give honor to that flag that protect us in our infancy and our ignorance. Man, I'm so mad with this government. I got a lot to talk about this government, but I don't do it. I talk to the sheik about it. I don't do it in public because this is a free national republic, just like he said, of the United States of America. And we dealing with many great, just like recently, they just had a new year for the Chinese. The Chinese just had their new year. Everybody got a new year except us, the so-called Negro, colored, and black. We don't have a new year. We take on all of the European holidays, but the bad part about it, the holiday that we take on is a holiday that enslaved our people. So now, I'm looking at the television the last couple of weeks. I see thousands of brothers and sisters sitting out in the audience. And I see the minister up there talking, whoever the minister is, and everything that he say, they say, yeah, they just shaking their head. And he told them that Jesus was a European, that those who call themselves Jew was the original European, and all our brothers and sisters who's supposed to be scholars shaking their head, yes. Europe was not even in existence when Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Myrrh was there. When you begin to talk about us as a people, God chose us. And when he chose us, you know how you go to Lakers, we close to LA, and you look up in the arena, you see all of their basketball championships. And that's the blessing that we have. How the brother was just saying earlier, how he loved the Morris Science Temple. When I look at the arena that we're in, and I look up there, and I see our forefathers, and see how strong we are, I see Abraham, I see Boaz by Ruth, I see Jesse, I see King David, I see Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Myrrh. Our brother Navi, Lynch-Bey, was teaching in the temple Friday. And he was telling us in the temple Friday how the spirit and the prayer of Hezekiah came into full manifest. Because you know Allah going to take Hezekiah away. And Hezekiah said, Allah, I'm not finished doing your work right now. Please spare me. Allah gave him 15 more years on earth. So he says some of the great fathers through which Jesus came, they're a lot more than that. Even when we talk about Cush, Navi was saying how a lot of, in the time of Prophet Muhammad, a lot of people used to have Cush on. But you know, Cush, Put, Mizraim, and Canaan were brothers. Ham had 4 sons. And you got to understand Ham's 4 sons when you look at yourself, because when you look at yourself and see Abraham, Abraham wasn't always Abraham. He first was Abram, and then he became Abraham. And that Ham and that Abram is just like your Il and your Bey. Your Il and your Bey is your connection back to the great God Allah. That's why Jew Ali say, Rome, you be going back there in boxcars stinking. He told us don't throw away the Bible. He said we're going to have to use this Bible to condemn the government. Look right there. In Revelation 1:4, it talks about the 7 churches that was in Asia. And when you begin to talk about 1453 Byzantine, the Ottoman Turks, you got an Asiatic Turkey and you got a European Turkey. And Noah's Ark rested at Mount Ararat in Asiatic Turkey. So there's a lot of stuff that we talk about here in the Morris Science Temple of America. There's a lot that Noble Jew Ali brought us. Noble Jew Ali brought us to hook us back up with the family of nations because we were 3/5 of a man until he came. So now if a man have a nationality and say that he's not Negro, colored, and black, and tell you that you had a national name when first brought to these shores, and then later on you come around and say that you was a black man, and tell everybody that you, yeah, I know Solomon said that he was black, He was talking about Dog Cuba Solomon was a descendant of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. He had a nationality. So don't tell me Solomon said he was black. You can't even claim Solomon. That's my brother. That's David's son. And Ruth, the Moabite, said the Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. So we always honored to be able to come before our Portland listening audience to talk about the last prophet in these days and time, Noble Drew Ali. We like to thank this media here for giving us this opportunity to come here to show you what our passion is. Our passion is scholarism. We're telling you what we know, not what we've been told. And through scientific study and investigation, you could be what you know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close out because we missed that song last week from our Mo brother. And we want to hear this brother sing today. So in conclusion, I would like to recite the Moorish American prayer, and then we'll call our chairman to sing. Praise Allah and honor the prophet. The Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.
Amen. The things I used to do, I don't do no more. Well, the things I used to do, I don't do no more. The things I used to do, I don't do no more. It's been a great change since I've been born. The places I used to go, I don't go no more. Well, the places I used to go, I don't go no more. Well, the places I used to go, and I don't go no more. There's been a great change since I've been born. The people I used to know, I don't know no more. Well, the people I used to know, I don't know no more. Well, the people I used to know, I don't know no more. It's been a great
of one family, bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classified as undesirables and are subjugated to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. We are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nation, as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation.